From the dense and untamed thorny African bushveld, a young food forest is emerging. Welcome to our Namibian food forest homestead. We're located in northern Namibia, Africa. Currently, we are at the end of January 2025 and waiting with much anticipation for the rainy season to get into full swing. So far, we've only had proper rains twice about 3 weeks apart. Even the natural grasses are struggling. The past 3 years had under average rainy seasons as well for us, about half of a good rainy year.
We're located in an area with extreme heat and drought where temperatures can easily reach 42 degrees Celsius, 108 Fahrenheit, and ground temperatures can go even higher. Yet, we do receive occasional frost in the winter. Getting non-native plants growing here proves quite the challenge. The sun is very harsh and we struggle to keep young plants alive. Perhaps we cleared out our initial area too much. Next time, we will leave even more large trees when clearing an area. Our soil conditions consist mostly of about half a meter of very hard clay on top of a limestone gravel layer with massive rocks deeper down.
I was a project manager in the construction industry.
And I used to be a teacher. I had a love for plants from a young age, and yet we still had lots to learn.
Being in our early 30s, we felt that wiser life choices had to be made. On the 11th of March 2020, it became quite clear the type of games which are afoot, so we decided to do the hashtag Get Out of Babylon challenge. Initially, we had to clear out a patch of very thorny trees and bushes. Our first fruit trees were planted mid to end 2021. Since then, it feels like we've had to deal with 33 million little challenges on the homestead.
Our biggest challenge is watering and irrigation. At the moment, we use hose pipes that we move from tree to tree, 7 to 7, 6 days a week. I'm ecstatic for dripper lines in the hopefully near future.
Currently, our water has to travel 1.5 kilometers, that's almost a mile to get here, through a 32 millimeter pipe that's about 1.3 inches, so the water pressure is very weak and the total supply is limited. We found the cheapest option to be regular 15 millimeter, about half an inch, plastic pipes that fit very nicely directly onto the taps and allow for interchanging different hose pipes quickly. Once our water tank is up, we plan to transition towards a syntropic agroforestry system, where we run drip lines each side of our tree lines. This way, we can more regularly water the area compared to the current situation where we get to water our trees about once a week if we're lucky, as well as giving us the opportunity to plant a more diverse variety of plants, especially in the empty spaces between the trees. Please let us know about this drip line idea. Initially, we will lay the lines directly on the ground as mounting them in the air with wires and poles are just too costly. With our daytime heat, I also fear that water drops will mostly evaporate if mounted overhead. Any tips or suggestions would be welcome. Another thing we were wondering is if we should keep the ground as is or first dig pits or African smiles before placing the drip lines. I have swales at strategic places to catch water over the greater area, so I think it's best to keep the ground level as is and rather start amending the soil in place with hardy plants like mustard, spinach, gooseberries, lemongrasses, etc.
Just before the winter of 2023, we totaled about 130 trees, some about 2 years old at the time. But after a few episodes of black frost, heat, and drought, we now stand at roughly 60 trees. To organize watering, we've divided the area into blocks. Block 1 is the least developed, with a 3-year-old almond that's doing well.
Block 2 along the gate, which we plan to put under drip lines first. Block 3 with a bird bath has a tough time with full afternoon sun. Olives do okay here.
Block 4 takes the most time to water, since it's closer to the house and we have a lot more trees and delicate plants in this block. Citrus does very well, apple seems okay, tea tree we need more of, and we can't believe how much pomegranates struggle given that it's such a tough plant supposedly.
Block 5 has a lot of Jatroppas self-seeding the area and a clump of bamboo that's growing but not thriving.
Block 6 got a liquid that's doing very well with a kraal and dam for the ducks.
Africa is brutal. We've lost all our pecan nuts and macadamia nut trees with bad weather, and due to termites we have zero guava trees left. Plants might love the sun, but full sun here is just too much to handle for most of them, and shade is unfortunately few and far between. Like planting in these tires, just do not work. They bake way too hard during the day, so we're going to remove it at some point.
This is our home to be. And this is our bushcraft kitchen, where I have been able to provide much needed sustenance for all of us, animals included, from delicious hamburgers and wood-fired pizzas to moringa-infused porridge for the chickens and ducks. When in a pinch, a bit of clay makes for a fantastic oven, with the bonus of not having to place your pots directly on the fire while camping. Our oven has grown and evolved quite a lot over the years, as you can see. Having an outside open kitchen has been a challenge, and it's still basically a camp kitchen. This, however, is not our final kitchen.
I am using termite clay mixed with grass, also known as cob, to build our house. All of this I built by myself with no additional labor except for the overhead timber structure and the guys that helped me to bring clay from the bush. Since I'm the only worker on the construction site, it was very time consuming.
For mostly everything, all labor comes down to the two of us. We get help once in a while when finances permit.
So in an effort to speed things up, I used these metal lip channels which were held into place by rods and wire to form a mold in which I placed my clay and stones. It didn't matter much if my clay mix turned out too wet or too dry, since the mold held everything nicely in place. For added strength, I added brick force in strategic places. Lastly, we plastered the walls with cement. Our aim with the roof is to one day have a living roof with soil and natural grasses growing on top. Everything is a work in progress that's mostly slowed down by finances. But spending 3 years building with clay, which cost almost nothing, compared to a 20-year bank loan for a small apartment, makes much more sense. We also have off-grid power with batteries and solar panels. It's sufficient and provide us with light charging capabilities, running the washing machine and fridge during the day, etc.
This portion will become our bedroom with an ensuite bathroom. In the beginning, we simply had no choice than to pitch a tent and camp right here in the heart of our forest to be. We ended up staying in the tent for almost 2 years. It was tough and winters were freezing, but we survived. Our shower gets fed with hot water from this machine called a donkey. We make a fire underneath the tank and the clay helps keep the heat for a day or two. At the moment, we sleep in our storeroom. We got it built at the end of 2023, thanks to a generous donation. Now we can sleep without bugs pestering us.
A homestead is quite a busy place, with mile-long to-do lists, unexpected crises popping up at any moment, and hundreds of different smaller projects, each progressing at their own pace.
This is our compost station for now. It consists mostly of plant debris, animal manure, and a lot of fine charcoal. We do it the lazy way and let nature take its course. We do, however, till the heap once in a while. We plan to move the compost station to a more shaded area in the future. This is how our first batch of compost turned out that we made over 3 years ago. And here we have our propagation station, nicely in the shade where we germinate and propagate all our plants for the food forest. Our Grenadella stand desperately needed an upgrade, so we used this opportunity to implement a few permaculture principles. The canopy will provide much needed shade for the surrounding soil, protecting all the life underneath.
Storing water in the ground is sometimes much easier than fussing with tanks and stands, so a depression was made here where water will collect after a rainstorm. We then added a bit of charcoal to help retain even more water and covered the area with thick mulch so we can traverse the area without it being a soggy mess.
This will allow a micro water table to form underground over time, which will water these trees around here automatically, requiring less time and effort input from us. Just look how this lime tree has flourished since we dug the depression. This is my herb garden with a variety of herbs. I make use of raised beds, however, it does present its own obstacles in terms of irregular watering. In the winter months I produce lettuce and the rest of the time summer vegetables.
This is my small field where I have low pressure irrigation overhead for planting corn, sorghum, mango in the summer and barley and oats in the winter. Because of the termites, we are too scared to mulch around our trees. So our strategy has been to have living ground cover or mulch with plants that seem to not be eaten by the termites as much as possible. Lemongrass, mint and periwinkle works well and are semi-drought tolerant also.
At some point, planting periwinkle worked so well at keeping termites at bay, we almost believed it to be a remedy. But sadly, they still killed our last guava tree that was surrounded by these flowers.
If we were to do this all over again from the start, we would definitely rather put all our eggs in one basket. In the sense that it would probably work better in our climate to dig a large pit slash a small swale and plant it with a large tree in the middle like an avocado, in between two smaller ones like moringa and sugar apple, with lots of flower, mint and other shrubs that might do well, like gooseberries, which you can also chop and drop a lot. All of this is taking into account a situation like ours where you have to water with a hose pipe or flooding it via your shower water or with buckets, etc. Currently, we farm with mostly chickens and mallard ducks on a free-range basis, and we have a few rabbits we're breeding for meat. The rabbits are fed grasses and certain tree leaves. We are located quite far from nearby towns, the nearest of which is very small and thus a market is not always available. The price of diesel also makes it difficult transport-wise. This is another greatly large challenge for us.
Pests and predators are plentiful. We regularly have snakes around the house and chicken coop. Termites eat whatever they can and even occupied our living roof for a good while. Caracals and jackals used to regularly catch our chickens and ducks. We also constantly have to keep our eyes open for spiders and scorpions.
Africa really is full of fun and games. Check this out. Ooh. This here is our chicken coop and rabbit pen. They seem to coexist quite nicely together. Bunny lawn towers are almost nearing completion. It will have a lot of nesting boxes slash rooms for the flock with a nice second story watering area. On the outside is a fence forming a larger pen for sheep and cattle in the future. Everyone wants their own island, so we dug a farm pond by hand with an island in the middle. I used only a shovel and a wheelbarrow, digging when I felt like it over the period of a year or so. This area was a natural shallow clay pan, so it was the perfect spot with all the clay needed right here already. We top up the water once a week if we can, and the pond holds the water generally well depending on the season.
A proper pond just seemed like a must-have, and the ducks absolutely loves it. Our pond has become quite a popular watering hole for the wildlife here on the farm. This is my favorite spot to sit and ponder while watching wildlife and sipping on a sundowner.
All in all, the homestead isn't too big, and we have a lot of work still ahead of us. We do the best we can within our means, and progress is sometimes frustratingly slow. However, on the homestead, every day brings something new, whether it be flowers, fruit, baby chickens, or challenges. We are excited for all the possibilities and potential still untapped, so stay tuned for more as we document our endeavor to start a food forest in the harsh Namibian climate.